So thank you all. This has been an amazing 2 days of exploring entrepreneurship and innovation by design here at the BAC and with our community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of it. This last panel is last, but definitely not least. We are going to be talking about industry disruptors. I'm going to hand the mic off to Russell Feldman, who has been longtime faculty, thesis faculty, chair of our board, BAC supporter, and just amazing champion for this institution. So take it away.
Thank you. Okay. Well, this is Industry Disruptors. That's the name of the session. Innovation, Emergent Tech, and AI. We have 3 speakers, all BAC alumni, who'll be considering very different aspects of technology and how it's changing our practice and the business of our practice. Our first speaker is Isra Banks, AIA. Isra is an architectural studio manager and educator with over 20 years of experience delivering complex civic, transportation, housing, and education projects in the United States and internationally. She currently works at GFT, where she oversees strategic growth, business development, and project delivery. Isra teaches practice management, leadership, and professional ethics at the BAC. She's also active in the BSA, the AIA, the Urban Land Institute, and Women in Transportation. Her professional focus includes entrepreneurship, resilience, housing, sustainability, and mentorship. Isra was just recently recognized by the BSA Fellows with its Excellence in Teaching Award. Isra will be speaking about AI's impact on technical and business performance and offers a framework to avoid AI's pitfalls in shaping equitable and just environments. I'll introduce all the speakers now, and then they'll have a chance to just stand up and offer their presentations. The second speaker is Raafat. Amar is the Chief Innovation Officer at Windover Construction, where he focuses on employing advanced technologies to optimize project delivery. He applies his over 20 years of experience in architecture, engineering, and construction to streamline workflows and enhance project outcomes globally. Amar was awarded the Global Autodesk AEC Innovator of the Year and also named an Autodesk Construction Champion. He also hosts the Autodesk series On the Road with Amar, where he travels worldwide to engage with industry leaders and explore innovations shaping the future of construction. Amar will discuss innovations in AI, BIM, robotics, and other new tech applications in both design and construction. Our third speaker is Nicole Voss, AIA. Nicole is the Director of Sustainability and Associate Principal at Isgenuity, a mission-driven architectural firm focused on the health and wellness of humans and our environment. Nicole is dedicated to advancing environmental justice through the firm's work in healthcare, higher education, and science and technology. Nicole is also focused on systematically reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with the built environment, both in her practice and her role as co-chair of the Carbon Leadership Forum's Boston Northeast Hub. Nicole will speak on decarbonizing our buildings, specifically through design and product specification of concrete, and also through the many interdisciplinary relationships we forge as architects and designers. So if you would, please welcome Isra. We'll start off.
Thank you, Russ. What an honor to be introduced by you. So, I'm going to talk about technology and in our industry. A lot of fear about AI, and I hear 2 very radical viewpoints. It's going to take over, our jobs, or the other way, it's going to save the world, or it's going to have a mind of its own. But I want to take us back 70 years. This picture, what does it tell us? I actually graduated at a time where we were just transitioning. There were two both ways, and I was considered a pioneer, and because I'm young, learning CAD. But it's like a sweatshop. People, no women, definitely, and it's from the books I read. I gladly wasn't in that era. Books I read, there was a drop captain. That's what we still use, that term, drop captain. He has a key to the bathroom. And in order for people to go to the bathroom, I don't know if any one of you have experienced this. In order to go to the bathroom, you have to just go to the front, shaking, afraid, and ask the drop captain for the key to go to the bathroom, and he's gonna time it, and you come back. Yes. At the same time, this is how the first computer looked like at that time. It's very similar to our data centers these days. It's huge and with a very minimal capacity. Fast forward to 2020. We're utilizing BIM, we're utilizing Revit, and what you're seeing in the picture is a program called Forma. So I spoke with our technology team in our very large firm, which can afford research and developing, actually, people who are sitting there, engineers from mechanical, electrical, and developing plugins and softwares and coding just for the needs of our team. And this is available from Forma, but what it does, what you see in the pictures, tells us how what it's doing is energy modeling, and how the buildings, and it makes it into seconds, different variations. And I had our summer interns actually won an international award while they were utilizing it as a little part of their study. For engineering folks, a lot of clash detection or MEP and stuff, and you just have these plugins. For our construction managers, speeding the way RFIs get moved along, similar to Procore and Forma, but way faster. And assigning to the right people. The project manager does not have to think a lot about it. Again, this is more of energy modeling, daylight calculations. So all that is freeing hours and hours of our time, giving us very high efficiency in terms of lighting and all the sustainable energy and all the errors that can happen. We're also using it, before I switch gears, we're also using it for QA/QC. So I would put, I do my QA/QC for the team. In our firm, you don't do your own QA/QC. You have to be completely from a complete different team. But I would do mine, and before I'm done, I put the set of drawings and specs in whatever AI. It gives me a very good list of all the typos, all the clashes. It's not exactly the same of what I've been doing. They're very two different perspectives. Sometimes there are hallucinations, but that's when the human factor comes in. So that's in the technical part of things, or aspect of things. We're also using it for financial analysis for our performance and our project's performance. We're also using it for business development, BD, right? And for go, no go, we put my firm is not doing it, but the technology is out there. We put it into, you put your firm's quals into the system. You put the RFP, or the RFQ, and it tells a request for qualifications and request for information for if students are here. And it tells you your chances of what project and probability of winning, probably, but how does this work? Clients are human, right? We communicate through our emotional intelligence. We communicate through understanding what the problem is. And guess what? Who's putting that data in? Us. So that does not mean it's taking over our job. It's just making it way better, way smarter, and faster, which frees our time to have more connections with our friend or develop with our colleagues and study more and develop. So going back to the first two pictures, how much time was being spent on drawing and redrawing and fixing errors. I lived that through my undergrad. And with these tools, it's optimizing our intelligence. It's all about what we're feeding it. So we're working on the cost, reducing the cost, the efficiency, the time, and the product. But would it design a building that does it feel? Does it have emotional intelligence? Without the data you put, this is what I like, it's jargon, garbage in, garbage out. It's what you're feeding it. Just think of the transition from, hand drawing to CAD. But what we want is, we want this time that we salvaged to use it for more human-centric design. Building more connections, not less. We don't want to be apart. More definitely we're increasing sustainability. And backstage, when we were prepping for this, Nicole was telling me, data center, AI means data centers bad for environment. Definitely agreed. But it's our duty as architects and engineers to make data centers. We don't work on computers, unfortunately, but to make data centers more sustainable in terms of water consumption and energy consumption and the way they're being designed. So what I want you to keep in mind is all that time that got freed needs to be used to focus on what these machines cannot do, which is a great opportunity. Human-centric, human health, connecting these dots. What we need to do is define what matters first, our priorities. What is the problem? And that problem, a machine cannot get it. You have to go with a client and be very emotionally intelligent to understand, and that's what we're good at, architects, understand what the problem is, our interpersonal skills. We balance data with judgment. Don't, I see students when they have they're okay with using AI, but just don't use it without using your judgment. How do you interpret human? How are we designing for experience, not just efficiency and environmental friendly, but we're utilizing, again, it's human-centric and environmental. And yeah, these are my takeaways. These are my final thoughts is, we're gonna make it work by focusing more on our emotional intelligence and intuition, and utilize the tool to help us make way better buildings. Well, thank you. Pass it back to Aaron.
Thank you, Isra, for great presentation and insights. I'm so glad to be back at BAC. Lots of great memories in this building. We've been fortunate to have this building within Boston downtown, a beautiful place. As I think Monica from PHA mentioned earlier, one of the great speakers here mentioned that BAC is usually the bridge between academia and the practice. And I believe in that. And that's one of the things I'm going to go through today. Actually, the only thing I'm going to go through today is zip through real life examples of how at Windover we've been utilizing technology in tackling real life challenges in the construction industry. I started my career in the architecture design side, designing public aquariums for 8 years, and then moved to construction. to utilize a lot of the things I learned here and along the way in practice in real life exams. So at Windover, we are a construction management firm based in Boston area in Beverly, Mass. We build everything except maybe hospitals. We do a lot of prefab and modular, one of the go-to for modular prefab. We have also global footprint with innovation. And we like challenging projects, and with the challenge comes, we don't just like building boxes. We like challenging projects, as you see here. With these challenging projects comes the need for using innovation to tackle the challenges and build in the most effective and efficient ways. We built for some of the most beautiful clients in New England here. We also have a global footprint in innovation, as I mentioned before. We've been fortunate to partner with the UAE government, for example, in using AI for 3 years to automate the processes for code compliance checks using BIM and AI and generative design. So when folks submit their permits, it goes through our system. It checks for code compliance very quickly in a matter of minutes and give a comprehensive report, architectural, mechanical, structural, to streamline compliance. So things that takes weeks for work takes hours or days, and that had been launched since last June, and with that it reduced drastically the time, as you see here, for code compliance. And this is a universal solution. Everything we built, there are interest from other municipalities in the US and in the region there to customize it to local code. So that's one example of how we're using AI in real life example, practical launch it. People use it in Abu Dhabi right now. Every day they want to submit for a residential building, and we're moving now to commercial. I'm going to zip through the different examples. This is a beautiful building in Dartmouth College called the Anonymous Hall. This project had this terracotta coming from Spain and these glass panels coming from Germany. One of our innovation group at Windover job is to make sure everything is coordinated and there are no surprises on site, as well as preserving design intent. Everything when it goes through here is really preserving design intent. So good builders take good designs, the design from the architect, and make sure it's built as designed. That's our job. So a good builder would build exactly what preserve as a design intent from the great architects who designed it. With that project, the challenge is that it was a 1970 building that after 40 years, the structural team decided we're going to strip off everything and we leave the structure to remain, and we're going to cover it and build this new beautiful structure and interior for it. So the architect designed that from the as-built drawings as a perfect square. After 40 years, things doesn't get square anymore. So with that, we did laser scanning, which is used 2-3 millimeter accuracy after demo. And we do QA/QC overlays to ensure that we are detecting exactly as-built situation on site. Why is that important? So when this comes from overseas, these terracotta walls, these glass panels ready to be put, we don't want to say, oh, this doesn't fit on the facade. It's more of a parallelogram. Of course, I'm exaggerating. It's not a parallelogram, but there's like all these discrepancies. That mitigate risk, help reduce waste, and rework and avoid any surprises on site to meet schedule. These QA/QC concepts goes all the way from using drones on site for QA/QC, ensuring what's design is being built during construction. Like this is during construction, during structure, we overlay what's the architect, the drawings versus what's being built, ensuring track progress. Speaking of off-site construction, this is a building that won the Autodesk Excellence Awards, Global Award. This was the biggest challenge in off-site construction is that you have pieces and elements built miles away, in this case in Quebec, Canada, and the site in Beverly, Mass. So there are built a component like that steel structure here. That podium is built on site, and you have boxes being made in Canada, and they have to fit with the vertical shafts for MEPs have to fit perfectly on it. So how we do that? After we put steel on site, we laser scan it to the 2 millimeter again, do QC overlays, and tell the factory when they're building it in real time, hey, your vertical shaft is going to hit steel. So they fix it. Why is that important? Because the last thing you want is that these boxes arrive on site and they're hitting steel, and then that diminishes the whole purpose of modular, which is reducing time on site, and they have to fix things in the old-fashioned way on site, reducing square footage and time, which is translate to money. this, everybody used Autodesk Civil 3D, for example, or any other software. This is software built to detect topography on a ground level. We used this technology on a vertical facade level to detect the plumminess of the facade, because when we build the modular, these boxes are not perfectly like Lego, like sharp. They have like some plumminess. So detecting that in real time when we put it help us preserve a design intent and end with a very high quality. Giving that to the field team in real time, things you can see. You would never detect these plumminess to the millimeter. So this helps us QA/QC, ensuring we preserve the design intent and end with the best facades possible. VR, we're one of the very early implementers of VR, not only to show how things will look like and partner with wonderful architects like you, but also to have a deeper understanding with the faculty. This is a health, at Endicott College, we did a tour sessions with the client so that people who is going to use the space can test the reach of it in virtual reality, helping higher satisfaction at the end. And the last thing I want to touch upon is also the use of digital twins. So for us as architects or builders, the life cycle of the projects always start with the design of the build once you hand it over. In fact, for the client, this is the very beginning of the life cycle of that job because it's going to stay with them for years. And we've been the first company actually to partner with Autodesk Tandem to utilize their digital twin solution Tandem in a real life project. It was Phillips Exeter Academy, Endicott College. And what we did is that we take all the history, all the O and the M manual information, all the catalogs of how that building was built, and we link it to the model. So for many years to come, we empower the facility managers so they can see at their fingertips all the data needed to maintain that building and all the rich data models. And we took it even a step further for that, is to add IoT sensors, so real-time data for mechanical units or occupancy. In a school like this, we did it at Phillips Exeter Academy. It detects occupancy, how many people in the rooms, temperature, and it's non-invasive. It doesn't take pictures or anything. It just detects the data. And why is that important? The next building, similar building, if it's a dorm or auditorium, the architect will have historical data to design the most sustainable building. So we're using detecting what's really matter in buildings and how buildings behave and being used. Use this historical data to empower the next architect with real data for the same client and how they can build the most effective. We did it at Endicott College on a really larger scale for multiple buildings. So looking forward to a great discussion and glad to be back with you. Thank you so much.
I talk with my hands, so I don't need that. I'm Nicole Voss. I'm going to be talking about decarbonizing the concrete supply chain. So this talk really was born from a almost 2 year engagement process that we went through as part of the Carbon Leadership Forum. It was the product of so many people's work. I'm just going to flash all of these entities on the screen. So it's all of these people and also about 150 volunteers who very generously gave us their time and opinions. We had a very robust stakeholder process. So just to walk you through very quickly the timeline, the Boston Northeast hub of the Carbon Leadership Forum was established in 2019. And then in 2022, we very generously were given a grant from the Jam Part Charitable Trust to help us understand why the Northeast was so far behind the West Coast in decarbonizing the concrete supply chain. We suspected that this was a process problem as opposed to an education or technology problem, since our West Coast friends had already been doing this very well for so long. But we went through this very robust process all the way through 2022, and then the report was issued in 2024. So I am going to try and summarize all of this in about 5 minutes. Buckle up. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is a pie chart of the greenhouse gas emissions that are generated by the United States annually. In blue, we have the operational carbon associated with the built environment. We all know that. We've known that for a long time. The yellow pie segments are associated with the embodied carbon. So this is the global warming potential of all of our things. It's the greenhouse gas emissions that are generated by the extraction, transportation, and manufacture of the built environment, including building materials and infrastructure materials. And then if we zoom in a little bit more into this yellow segment, we see that cement is about 6% of the embodied carbon. So if you take 6% of 31%, you get about 1.8% of the whole pie. That seems pretty chunky. That's a good place to put your energy. Yeah, unfortunately, this slide is old. This is from 2022. In 2025, data centers generated 2.5% of the overall carbon associated from the United States by industry. So it's cute that we are trying to decarbonize concrete. I will argue that it is much more impactful to avoid generating more carbon with the data centers. However, back to the engagement process. We started by trying to understand who are the stakeholders involved, what are they doing here, what are the barriers, what's our problem? So we reached out to all of the architects, engineers, contractors, ready-mix suppliers, owners, developers, and we sent them a survey and we said, what do you think your role is in this problem? What are your barriers? And how do you think that your cohort relates to the other cohorts? We created an ecosystem map of all of these stakeholders so that we could see all of these little interrelationships. And we tried to pinpoint not only the stakeholders who had the most leverage within the system, but also provide ourselves a framework so that when we, in the spring, convened focus groups in these silos of all these stakeholders, we could map all of the barriers and challenges across these groups. And in the fall, we came together in person at the BSA, and these workshops allowed us to engage directly with each other. We didn't start talking about solutions until we got together in the same room, right? So that was really important. We're building trust and we're trying to get this nuanced understanding of each other and each other's pain points as we're sitting at the table together, really being able to have this fluid dialogue. So this was great. We got a whole bunch of data from this really robust stakeholder process. And we ended up with this incredibly dry, boring pile of data about concrete specifications and cement. We gave that to the Green Commons, and they came back with this idea to make a game out of our end of effort report. And this game, one, was way more engaging than it would have been otherwise, but two, it really allows all of the different stakeholders to see themselves within this process. And then we laid out, all right, well, here are the key barriers that the industry as a whole, all of these cross-disciplinary characters are grappling with. And then here's your role within that challenge. And then we also broke it down by group. So for example, the owners were saying, you know, here's your opportunity, here's your challenges, here are your allies, here's what you might want to do if there's someone in your project delivery team who's not an ally. We laid out the whole thing. So I think I'm doing okay on time. I'm going to run through the ideal way that this would work. An owner or developer has an idea for a project. They compile all of their building performance demands, and this includes a clear target for the reduction of embodied carbon. The owner gives that RFP out to the world. An architect responds, the architect is awarded the project. They say, oh, this is so great. I have a clear expectation of my reduction goal for embodied carbon on this project. I'm going to go to the structural engineer and talk about how we can reduce the embodied carbon on the concrete. The structural engineer says, we're going to talk about layer cake. And this is relevant because historically, conventionally, we've always used prescriptive specs. And this means we're going to say these ingredients in this ratio and this specific kind of milk from this cow. And it really over constrains the ready mix supplier. But now we can move to performance specs and really just specify, all right, I want a concrete of this strength by this time with this reduction in embodied carbon. And it allows the ready mix supplier, whenever they're pouring the concrete, whether that be 2 years or 4 years from the time the specs are written, to use whatever technology is available, whether that's type 1 L cement or glass pozzolan whatever's the cheapest thing that's going to meet the performance. And it really helps to de-risk the process for the contractor as well. So they're not estimating dollars at perceived risk of a specification that is very specific about you have to use this kind of supplementary cementitious material. So on its face, this process is innovative because we're decarbonizing what has conventionally been one of the key drivers of carbon emissions associated with the built environment. That's great. I will also say that equally disruptive, possibly, is this idea, this apparatus that we've built with the cohort of all of these cross-disciplinary people. We can now use that apparatus to do things that are even more impactful, like embracing a circular economy and embracing material reuse. So,
So, we've heard a lot about innovation. We heard about delivery of technical products, code compliance and crash detection, quality assurance, quality control stuff, changes in how we spec, looking at embodied carbon, touched on briefly whole building life cycle analyses, business management, go, no go analysis, interdisciplinary team building. There are other aspects, sales, modes of visualization, innovating to maintain people-centered design through or in spite of AI. So first question, thinking that we are, after all, a school, where do each of you see opportunities for our students and graduates? What fields or topics should they seek exposure to and experience with?
So when I first started my career, I started with Peter Shermaif, who is a designer of the New England Aquarium and the Baltimore Aquarium and Genoa Aquarium. He just designed the aquarium. I thought I'm gonna I did my master's degree in at the BEC. It's in the library. I'm sure it's here on aquarium design, because I thought I'm gonna spend my whole career designing public aquariums with all the life support systems, complex systems in it. And it's been fun to model all these tanks. Back Revit was really new life support system. So I thought that's my career. But then after that, when the economy was not okay in 2008, 2009, Peter decided to a little bit retire and do other things, which he's an amazing, I learned a lot from him. Shout out to him. So I moved to construction because nobody wanted to really build houses for fish at that time. So when I joined the construction industry, I really brought the design aspect of things on how to make it real in construction and bringing that knowledge. And back then we had VR was a new thing, laser scanning, drones. Now we do AI. So the continuous evolvement of the technology is not just an isolated incident. It's a accumulation of knowledge and expertise. So my advice to new folks who are joining the industry is to keep learning your first 10 years of your industry career. Just keep learning as much as you can, because those first 5 years of your career is going to really shape your future. So constant learning. Don't focus only on pay or making a lot of like quick successes. Focus on learning, because that will be evolving a lot. Everything you take in. Focus on travel, learning from others' experience. As we said, I do the On the Road Autodesk series, because it's really focused on how we as a global community learn from each other. There are things, the ways we just learned about the Adobe architecture. In Germany, is used something different, and then in Africa, we learn from each other to build the most efficient communities and most sustainable communities. So constant learning at the beginning, don't focus on the quick wins or quick titles. At the first 5 years, focus on keeping learning everything you can, take in, travel a lot, see a lot, because that's like a sponge you absorb, and the result is going to reflect on your career and your designs.
That's a very timely question as we're at an inflection point. But the basics are the same. I'm gonna use what many of you probably familiar with Tom Parks. Um, he taught us. He was director of distance master program. Um, and on our last meeting with him, he was teaching us professional practice, and he said, some of you are going to be educators, some of you are going to be writers, some of you. So he listed a number of professions. You're getting a degree, but you don't have to become traditional architects because the profession is changing. Well, it keeps changing, it keeps evolving, but with what in light of what the technology inflection point or what's happening here, in my opinion, but that's not a book or research proven, that the priorities are, I wouldn't list them in priority, but the top, let's say 5 is psychology. So we can focus on human-centric and trauma-informed and all these good stuff. Coding, so we have a generation of architects and engineers can be hybrid and develop all these cool plugins that will, rather than in the past, Revit was not done by architects. A few people went there to help out. Business, that's very important. Continues to be important. It's going to continue to be important. Law, that's 4. Also continue a hybrid between architecture and law. Help me out. What could be the fifth? Let's say 4.
I would encourage students to expose themselves to organizations and thinkers who are really radically reconsidering what it means to be a good building. So regenerative design, specifically Living Futures, is doing a lot of really incredible work in this field. Design for Freedom is examining for the first time the implications of the supply chain of building materials and what the implication of these supply chains are on social equity across the world. And then I would also say the Seed Collaborative in Vermont is doing some really fantastic and eye-popping things around forming coalitions and incubators of bio-based materials.
You mentioned Seed Collaborative, and so I'll just follow up with a question that's parallel. If you were interviewing someone for a job, what questions would you ask?
I mean, I think that depends very much on the interviewee, but I will say generally what we're looking for in candidates are people who can understand the systems in which we're working, understand how they interface with our work, but then also who can demonstrate leadership of thought and an independence of thought and a willingness to really understand the realm in which we're working and generously occupy that space, but then also challenge it when it's healthy.
I'll follow up on that. Attitude is the number 1 thing, and an attitude towards learning and growth. I am very fortunate to spend a week twice a year with BAC students with an externship program where Beth and Maria. Shout out to them. And during that process, it's a whole week. I look at their resumes and their work, and by the end of the week, they ask me actually for feedback rather than different from the feedback about their resumes and portfolios. And I could look at them and see like this person could become could write a book about construction details, and this person could be very good in finance or business development or the amount of empathy. One student I took them with me to job sites, and the amount, it's their senior livings, and the amount of care she showed and the way she speaks to clients, so Yes, the portfolio tells me what their strengths, but I wouldn't read the details. But all these things are teachable and learnable. But their attitude and where their strengths are in terms of their interests, like, do I want to produce pretty pictures, or I want to be human focused and client focused? And like Diana said, if some of you were here in the morning, we match the skills to the person. But again, number one thing is the work ethics, the respect to people, and willingness to grow and maintaining growth mindset and be a good citizen in general. Community service and all that stuff.
I totally agree with Nicole and Esra. Just to add one more thing is most important thing in my what I look at is always the can-do mindset for folks. That's because you can teach skills and you can teach, you're going to evolve in the industry. We always like in my group, in the innovation group, we like new graduates and then they keep learning. But the can-do attitude is really key, especially in our ever evolving. Our team learns something new every 6 months. We're actually doing work now with tools and technologies that we didn't know about, or we even discussed 6 months ago. So it's constantly evolving. So the can-do is that you say something is impossible to happen. No, you have that can-do to reach to your goal is really key in today's innovation career market. And of course, cultural fit. I love the empathy example you mentioned. We build also senior housing, and there's someone who cares about people. People ask Windover to build their most beautiful homes, beautiful buildings, schools, senior housing, affordable, everything. So we go to places where people consider their own home, and with that comes the empathy and they really care about people. That's why we call it building great things with great people at Windover, because it's really about the people who can build all this, and then the technology comes next on how to achieve that.
That's interesting to hear. I think one of the things that I pick up on in what you say, for all the talk about brand new technology, radical transformation, it does come back to the fundamentals, personality and attitude and interest in learning, capacity for growth, energy, commitment, very human-centered topics, as opposed to, what software do you have a skill in right now, because the world is changing so quickly that having that will only obsolesce if that's what you're hiring for. So I think in that respect, the BAC is very well situated, because if there's a brand associated with this school, it's that we graduate people who are competent, serious, focused, practice-based in their educational framing and their use of their education. And so that can-do attitude. It's been my experience over the years I've been associated with this school that the only people who get out of here have a can-do attitude, because otherwise you couldn't do it. So it's in that regard, walking in the door from this place would seem to offer an opportunity for students to move into those firms that are doing the cutting edge work, and create the opportunity for them to be exposed to the new stuff that's going to help power their careers. So now we have a couple minutes, not much, but is there any questions from our audience here that you'd like to ask these folks?
Bring the around, because we have folks online here.
All right, so my question to you guys is, some of you guys have actually expressed that 6 months ago, you guys were learning exactly what applications, what's new out in the world of technology and emergent AI. So my question is, as AI was emerging, how did you find the applications and the apps that were worth looking into, that gave you that ROI, the return on investment on you know, okay, is this worth looking into and how can I implement this into my projects? Or was this not worth it?
So there was a lot of shining things in the industry. There's a new software that's born every day. And the role of a CIO or an innovation group in a company is to identify the correct solutions for the right challenge. I spend a lot of time on job sites, learning firsthand all the challenges and the problems the superintendents have on site, like what we went through, like a lot of modular or stuff. And from these problems, we know all the solutions that we can tackle that challenge. So it's a tech first solution based on the challenge, not just to have like a nice, it's not about the latest drone or the laser scanner or latest nice software. It's really about the challenge in hand and how we tackle it with whatever we learn it and keep learning to tackle it with innovative solutions, whether it's a combination of laser scan and VR, AI and automation, whatever tools. It's not about the tool, it's really about the challenge and the problem in hand and how we can tackle it.
So, I come from 5,600 employee company, focus on infrastructure, and our services ranges from bridge design, asset management, federal building, or designing buildings. That's the smallest group in this very large company. Similar to we have a CTO, I think, chief of staff, and then each business group leader does have their own ideas. And then we have a technology person in our business group. So as an architect or what do you say, studio leader or leader, we would go, or sustainability person, I'm sustainability chair, we go to our technology person and tell them like, we have this need, just like you go to site. They bring it up to the CTO, or sometimes they do have, depending on the budget, they do have allowances. So they go interview different providers to solve that problem, or we hear about that software, or architects hear about that software, and we want to investigate. So they do a couple of interviews, lunch and learns, they show us, and then they decide how many licenses we can afford, or how or if we can develop that solve that need inside the company. But again, it's a collaboration. In this size of company and that amount of money it might cost, we're not going to buy 5,600 licenses for a certain software. It depends on supply and demand and what kind of need and how much return on investment. At the end of the day, the business leader for each business has to decide whether sign off, depending on that budget. So it's a very smart question, but it's a very complicated process. Depends on the business structure of each company. If we had time, I would have, no, I'm sorry. I would have told you when I was a one-person business how I dealt with it, but it's very simple, just like you.
So Isgenuity is only 60 people, but we are a mission-driven firm, and our mission is to advance the health and wellness of our community, whether that means ourselves and our clients or our communities. And so for us, we don't use AI because we understand that there is irreparable harm being caused by the carbon emissions associated with data centers. And not only that, but the water that's used to cool the servers is astronomical and disrupting aquifers. So we would never say to our friends in Lowell, who have been living with the data center since 2015, oh, I'm sorry that you have asthma and respiratory illness. We needed to make more money. So we don't use it.
I think that we're going to wrap up. Do you want to say one final thing?
Go BAC.
I think that sums up our incredibly rich 2 days of exploring innovation and entrepreneurship in design, and through so many, we had 3 amazing speakers yesterday, and then a workshop, and then a celebration evening, and then today we had Dr. Spinelli's presentation, and then an afternoon of 4 panels, just diving into this topic in so many different ways and hearing so many different perspectives. And it's really, really important for us, I think, as we're, really stepping into this, in a lot of ways, new era, to look at these things realistically and have these, I really appreciate the honesty of the conversations that have been, that we've been having. I want to thank the moderators and the panelists, all of you, for being part of this, being part of our community. I also want to thank our sponsors. I'm going to try to remember all of them, and Ayla, you're going to help me. So we have the Shafran Hames Foundation. They helped launch the Oberlander Landscape Architecture Prize. It's like the Pritzker for architecture. There's also Colin Bray, who's one of our moderators, his Century 21 Cityside company that's here in the Back Bay. We also have isgenuity. Thank you, Kate Spinelli, for sponsoring us and bringing your leadership here. And we have one more. You're going to look it up, and we're going to say it in a second. We've had a very, very full couple of days. Consigli, yes. So Consigli actually helped us with our 951 restoration project.